1-877-MA Enroll. That's 1-877-MA Enroll.
The People Station. What is that?
What is that?
Spark FM.
Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I am so excited because Dr. Leonard Horowitz is my favorite guest of all time. I interviewed him when I was in transition, trying to figure out like podcasting on my own, and the sound was absolutely horrible. It's still on YouTube, even though like the visual is off, the audio is off. It was completely my fault, but the information is still nonetheless valid and factual and true. So Dr. Horowitz is an internationally recognized genius in the arts and science of natural healing, whose Harvard training, 4 decades of public health service, thousands of internet publications, dozens of peer-reviewed scientific articles, 21 books, award-winning books, and 7 documentary films, has made him the world's most prolific and best credentialed champion of natural medicine and frequency rehabilitation. Dr. Horowitz has been at the forefront of shattering the addictive and damaging drug paradigm for nearly 40 years. And so that is his bio. Let me tell you why I love him. So for me, I truly believe that he is the conspiracy theorist realist. So while you are out here talking about conspiracy theories, he's like, well, let me show you how it's factual. So today we're going to be talking about everything. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Go ahead and inbox me. I am excited. Good rising, Dr. Leonard Horowitz. How are you?
Very blessed, sister. I'm actually blessed even when I forget I'm blessed.
Amen. That's all of us, right? We forget that if you're breathing, you're still blessed.
Yep, absolutely. You know, we're breathing Creator's oxygen, air, being sustained by a Holy Spirit power of love. How can we not be blessed?
Amen, amen, amen. Okay, so we only have short time together, so I want to try and get as much as possible. My first question to you is 528. And so we have been, I am a frequency listener, especially at night, whenever I'm cleaning or cooking or just like background noise. 528 is what I listen to, because the last conversation you said, Tayla, don't listen to nothing else. Everything else is a sham. 528 is what you want to listen to. And I've always wondered, like, why? What about the 429s and the 1111s? And like, what about the other frequencies are not as in tune as a 528? And for those who don't understand, what is the importance of 528 megahertz?
Well, it's the heart of the universe. You know, I'm very blessed to be working with some of the world's leading physicists and mathematicians, and that the evidence, I mean, is like right in front of our faces. Literally, when you look at nature, we're being sustained by oxygen. Where is that coming from? Chlorophyll in the botanical world, largely. The other place that it's coming from is the ocean waves. So basically, oxygen is resonating. It's got an electron, and essentially the electrons are resonating, and the resonance energy of the electrons are vibrating at certain frequencies. And the particular frequency that we see from is 528. Why do I say that? Well, for example, take a look at green pigment of chlorophyll. It's 528 nanometers of light. Now, that's interesting. That's the heart of the rainbow. And that rainbow is created by electrons beaming off the hydrogen in the sun, and it's coming through the rainbow and through the actual water in the clouds in the sky and showing us the rainbow. At the heart of the rainbow is greenish yellow. That's in Oriental medicine. That's your heart chakra, your greenish yellow heart chakra. So that matches nature. It matches the chlorophyll in the botanical world. And then it also is reflective of the heart of sunshine. So the electromagnetic color spectrum, the heart of sunshine, 528 nanometers, is also the heart, not just of your heart or my heart, but it's actually the heart of the Creator. And then when you start to go into the physics and the mathematics of what's called the musical mathematical matrix of divine design, of intelligent design, how everything is operating in harmony virtually, Even though dissonance is actually part, I can talk to you about various frequencies that cause dissonance, one of which is 741. That actually is very dominant in today's music. It's been institutionalized as, in musicology, it's called the devil's tone. It's dissonant, it's abrasive, it's aversive, it's stressful and distressing, diseasing. And that frequency is what you actually are listening to if you're not listening to 528radio.com or you're not listening to 528 Music, whereby if you're a music scholar, you know musical instruments are tuned so that bands and orchestras can play together. And since 1938, the Western world, because of the Rockefeller Foundation and virtually the globalist institutionalization for the Western world of the Western world's music, based on about 10 years of acoustic weaponry research and development at RCA and BMI, they had determined that this was most distressing frequency would be virtually at the heart of what's called A440 standard tuning. So people that are listening to normal music on radio are actually getting in a dominant chord, the D major chord. At the heart of the D major chord, which is very prominent in music, you have this very distressing, albeit it is a natural frequency, but it's extremely distressing. Now, that's only one frequency of 9 total perfect circle of sound frequencies by which the musical mathematical matrix of creation is administering reality. 1 of 9 is dissonant. The rest of the 8 get along in harmony. So that's very interesting. It brings up a whole, metaphysical and spiritual, questions and discussions about music and the importance of music and the importance of even war making or disease inducing in the whole bigger picture of where we're going in consciousness, where we're evolving consciously as a human species. Now, if you're really interested in getting engaged in this kind of work, you really want to check out, although it's very challenging to really, grasp it, the brilliant work of a genius by the name of Dr. Vernon Nepi and Edward Close. Dr. Nepi is America's leading psychiatrist and expert in combining looking at consciousness and the metaphysics and mathematics of consciousness and how it can help psychiatry and in mental health domain. So Dr. Nepi published with Edward Close a challenge to the world's leading physicists who advanced what's called the God particle in quantum physics. And they advanced that thesis, and Edward Close and Dr. Nepi said, no, you're mistaken. Here's why you're mistaken. There's actually 9-dimensional space. There's literally 9 dimensions in reality that they claim, proving it mathematically. And they also prove mathematically the existence of God in administering these 9-dimensional matrix space that the religious world calls virtually the heavenly kingdom. And so what's actually taking place is that there is a energy, spirituality. Of course, spirit is energy. Energy, all of it, is electrons. So like that example I gave you of sunshine actually delivering the radiation, electrons bouncing off the hydrogen, moving through the water in the sky, giving us this beautiful rainbow. That's indicative of this musical mathematical matrix of vibrating electrons that are actually materializing us in the physical realm, in this dimension. And that now is all being magnificently harmonically administered, albeit the Creator did impose one of those frequencies, which we're now on earth, not as it is in heaven, because everything in heaven is actually harmonized, it's administered harmonically and perfectly. But on earth, where we've got all the dissonance and the rioting and the corruption and the crime, and the political manipulations and impositions of society now, social distancing, mask wearing, plagues striking. Well, all of that, you see, is in dissonance. It's in the 741 frequency called in musicology the devil's tone. And so, you can't make this stuff up, especially after you have magnificent scientists, genius scientists and scholars giving us this intelligence by which we can make smarter choices. And that's where we come down to currently in the world, in society today. We've got to make critical choices, not just for the environment and our own health and safety, but the future of generations. And that requires informed consent, exercise of free will. We must have the intelligence on all levels, whether it's dealing with COVID-19 or whether it's dealing with the music we're listening to or whether it's dealing with what we're eating and or what we're communicating. All of that has to be done intelligently, reasonably, in a manner which uplifts and heals and sustains us. And that is consistent with the Creator and the blessed, Jesus, the Messiah, Yeshua, or really even Mosaic law, Moses' law. All, in fact, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all of the religious world believes in the Holy Spirit. What is spirit again? Energy. What's energy? Electrons resonating at certain frequencies. So that's what we're advancing. This great understanding that we can choose intelligently a better way for the evolution of humanity. And to do that, one of the projects that I've been working on comes right out of the Bible. It comes out of Isaiah 22:22 and Revelation 3:6 through 8, which is an Old Testament and a New Testament prophecy, the same prophecy. And it says that in the end times, when now there's wars and rumors of wars and earth changes and weather changes, that the sixth angel from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, which, as you've been following in the news, is in gross chaos, the outrageous crimes that are being committed politically as well as socially in the city of brotherly love, is an indicator of where we are currently and unfortunately not yet where we're going. So this angel, it's the sixth angel from the city of Philadelphia, brotherly love, who comes in these end times to herald a key to the house of David that opens doors that no man can open, closes doors that no man can close. These are spiritual portals to the heavenly domain, to heavenly kingdom, to uplifting ourselves consciously, metaphysically into this divine frequency resonance of love. That's 528, the love revolution, 528 love revolution. So what is my project? One of my main projects is to call upon the religious world and the world's religious leaders, as I went to Israel and I did for the Orthodox Jewish community in Israel. I said to them, here in beautiful Israel, in the city of David, right next to the Temple Mount, you have the entryway to the city of David in Jerusalem, where you have a huge musical harp. And King David used to play a musical harp, a healing harp. It would heal his bitter enemies, including Saul, says the Bible story. Well, my question to the religious world is, if the key of the house of David is not 528, based on all the science and the revelation that we've had, what is it? You tell us, you tell me what you think the key of the house of David is that opens these spiritual portals for our uplift, our divine human communion, if you will, fundamentally our salvation as a species, because we're on the brink of extinction with this insanity and this chaos and this dissonance that's being administered financially, politically, geopolitically, expressed in these emergencies such as COVID-19. So there's my question, Tayla. That's one of my most important projects at the current time.
Thank you for sharing with us. So we are having the planetary alignments and, Jupiter, Saturn, solar eclipse, new moon, like all happening in the span at the same time. How does that interact with us as humans on the like energetically neutron field?
Well, we're actually having prophecy fulfilled. And then when you start to study Dr. Neppi's brilliant work with Edward Close, the mathematics of by cosmic design, everything's spinning. You see, you look at the galaxies, for example, or you look, go to the beach and pick up a shell. So many of them are spinning and spiraling. Look at flowers, they're all spinning and spiraling. The fact of the matter is, so is a snowflake. And basically, the structure of snowflakes come out of 528 frequency, the six-sided hexagonal shaped ring. That literally ring is the Star of David. You've got the pyramid up and a pyramid down, triangle up, triangle down. And that is part of what's actually the manner in which musical mathematics is actually directing prophecy and future manifestations. So when you're talking about cosmology, when you're talking about alignment of planets, when you're talking about the physical and geophysical manifestations of the matrix math of the 9-dimensional space that's being administered virtually from the kingdom of heaven, you can't even conceive of the brilliance and genius, creative genius of God. We're just human beings. We can't even conceive of that level by which the creator's technology using musical mathematics actually maintains the law. There's the law in the universe. The creator's law is math. It's administered mathematically, harmonically. We on earth, if we really want to, see the model and the genius and apply that on earth as it is in heaven, we've got to completely reform all of our courts of law. They're all grossly corrupted, in my humble opinion. Very rarely do you see a judge that's not under the influence of graft, bribery. We've seen that recently with the Supreme Court ruling. We've seen that a number of matters in which the courts are grossly untrustworthy because they're not following the harmonics and literally the righteousness. That means right standing. That means standing right in virtually the kingdom of heaven and the laws of the kingdom of heaven. Now, again, creator's language is math. Math is words, spoken word. When you speak, when you're hearing me right now, what you're actually picking up is the mathematics of language. And originally, even the Torah was sung in mathematics. It wasn't a language, so to speak. Hebrew was not a language. Before there was Hebrew, it was actually mathematics, and it was a sung language. It wasn't spoken. So now we're dumbed down over the millennia. We've been dumbed down and gotten further and further away from this freeing truth. But the fundamental understanding, what you're asking, just go back and study the work of the Pythagorean mathematicians. Pythagoras was one of the mystery schoolers that included the Leonardo da Vinci. The first book in science was Aristotle. It was called Physics. Where does that come from? That word physics. Aristotle was part of this school that was actually teaching what you're asking. How is the universe and reality manifesting? Aristotle wrote the book Physics out of the words philos, physics, the root word of physics, the first science book. This is the very first book of science, the beginning of science. Today we have the gods of science dictating medicine, dictating what we do. It's virtually science versus God now, because you're not really getting in science. You're getting pseudoscience at best or fraud at worst. But really, go back to the initial work of the Pythagorean mathematicians to answer your question. It is Aristotle's physics coming out of the word philos, love, and the Pythagorean mystery schoolers all believed in the same thing I'm telling you right now, that the root of everything including physical manifestation and evolution, is all mathematics. They actually coined the term history. Before there was in English language the meaning of history, which is, past generations and records of what actually went down, you had history, meaning the mathematical presentation of electronic energy and vibrational energy manifesting reality through musical mathematics and harmonics. So that's really the essence of the mystery schoolers' whole agenda, was to study reality, study cosmology, look at the alignment of the planets, look at all the things that we, look at today, such as the prophecies based on planetary alignments, astrology. All of that is based on the same thing. There's another very interesting field of study that is the prophetic card reading, the destiny card reading. And there's 52 cards in a deck of cards. There's 4 suits. Well, each of those cards have a mathematical meaning and place in the deck. And that's consistent with like looking at astrology, where there are certain signs, it's 12 signs, and each of those go through transitions, and there's planetary influences. And to understand the bigger picture, you have to integrate this musical mathematical matrix that Dr. Nepi and Edward Close have now proven to challenge the world's brightest physicists.
One of the documentaries, so I love documentaries, that's my thing. One of the documentaries that I was watching was about pyramids, and they found this pyramid, which is like a couple miles from the 3 great pyramids that we actually know of. There's thousands that are not spoken of for those who do not know. But in this particular pyramid, it looked like it was like a healing chamber or a sound chamber for healing. And I'm wondering why today we don't. And so what it was explained in the documentary was you walk into this pyramid or chamber and you pick whichever ring you want to sit on, because internally you know what you need to be healed. And so the doctor or the medicine man or woman of the time wouldn't tell you where to go or where to sit. You would go and you would sit wherever your soul told you to go. And they would do this thing that would cause this sound. And based on where you were sitting, you would have a certain frequency or a certain vibration that would heal you of whatever ailment was bothering you. And I'm wondering, like, when it comes to holistic, which you are, a holistic practitioner or teacher, how is it that we've lost sight of the ancient wisdom? Like, how is it that we no longer are sitting in chambers? And I can't think of his name right now, but back in the 60s, he brought college students into like zero frequency, zero resonance, and brought them underground into a bunker, put them in a organite chamber, and noticed that whatever ailments that they had immediately dissipated after like these 20 minutes and 30-minute sessions. And so how did we stray so far from ancient ways that like held true in belief, and why do we see those now as pseudosciences instead of the truth that they are?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Let me start by grabbing something off the shelf here. Okay, so this is a copy of it's a CD that's it's called the Solfeggio Eclectica CD. So I did this as a model for what you're asking about. To answer your question directly, it has been the media that has dumbed us down from the very beginning, from the creation of the English language by Shakespearean plays and the Bible itself being translated and actually encoded during the translation process, which actually delivered to me via a scholar and a prophet, a doctor, naturopathic doctor, Dr. Joseph Paleo. Back in 1998, actually 97, Joey had, as a good Catholic, had attempted to go to his church leaders, Roman Catholic church leaders. He went to the cardinal, he went to the bishop, to ask virtually the same question that you're asking now. Joey wanted to have the original musical scale by which the hymn to St. John the Baptist was sung. And that was reputed to be the most spiritually uplifting hymn of all the ages. So you would think that the Roman Catholic Church would give it to Joey and say, yeah, good for you for studying this wonderful hymn. They didn't. They buried it. They secreted it. And the reason they secreted it, along with about 154, 157 Gregorian chants, the most powerful, spiritually resonating and uplifting Gregorian chants, was because they wanted to do what you're asking. They wanted to dumb us down spiritually. Because if you can suppress people spiritually, and look at what's taking place in Africa and the genocide. You know, I'm actually disgusted with Black Lives Matter for not actually coming to the core of the issue. The core of the issue is that Black people are the oldest people on the planet. They're the most spiritually evolved. All you have to do is go to Africa and study and be with the communities there and the families there and see how loving and spirit-filled they are. Or look at the soul music in America. Look at the difference between what we're now experiencing in terms of the music field versus that. Well, at any rate, it's all a matter of using music, the Creator's language, to dumb us down, to separate us, to divide us from the blessings of the heavenly kingdom of the Creator's love. So essentially, that's the answer to your question. The answer is today, you've got the sophisticated media. You've got the NBC Universal Music Group, which is grossly corrupted. Man, everything that you see going down in politics today in terms of the corruption is associated with a cartel. It's a crime gang. It's a racketeering enterprise. And look at, for example, Jeffrey Bronfman. Jeffrey Bronfman Jr. I'm sorry, not Jeffrey Bronfman. Jeffrey Bronfman's the importer of the new designer LSD. His brother, Edgar Bronfman Jr., with Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton. So Chelsea Clinton, Edgar Bronfman Jr. are the co-directors of the ICA, and Bronfman Jr., Edgar Jr., is the director of the company that now transitioned into the NBC Universal Music Group. They're the leading Democratic Party financiers, mind you, because Barry Diller, who's the superior officer in that group, is the largest financier of the Democratic Party. So you've got this control mechanism operating here that suppresses us from the really most important aspects of our loving each other, getting along together. Instead, they substitute this very abrasive and aversive music to create a culture. It is a degenerative culture that began probably even before the Roman Catholic Church, and the Romans decided to basically, kill Jesus and work with the hypocrites in the temple, the Jewish temple, to do that dirty deed. And they were in the process, even back then, of manipulating the public's mindset to engage this hypocrisy instead of divine certainty and divine communion. So I showed you the Solfeggio Eclectic CD and DVD that I did to bring to the world an example of a model of exactly what you're talking about. Instead of going into a pyramid in Egypt, and by the way, if you want to learn about the connection between 528 music and the 528 mathematics and the sacred geometry of the Giza pyramids, you can go to 528revolution.com, 528revolution.com, and read the articles there that have been made. I did some of them, but a wonderful researcher and mathematical scholar, did that research. Let me just recall his name for a minute. Anyway, you'll see articles there. It'll come to me. The Victor Showell. There you go. His name is Victor Showell. He's the top expert in the field of looking at the frequency dynamics and the mathematics of the pyramids of Giza. And so when you start to study his research, and then, like I mentioned earlier, study the Pythagorean mystery school mathematicians, then you'll see why it was that I then created this album and this video. Because the future of medicine lies in this understanding and the restoration of this intelligence. And so, yes, what you're showing on the screen is now an example of what's called cymatic energy that is vibrating that particular structure into the shape that it is. Look, right now, you are a carbon-6 being. Look at your organic chemistry. All of your organic chemistry actually matches chlorophyll structure. And your hemoglobin is virtually identical to the structure of chlorophyll, except for chlorophyll is green with magnesium. You and I, human beings, have iron at the center of the molecule that makes us have red blood. So, but the structure in itself, vibrating that physical reality, those molecules and those structures, the organic chemistry ring, which is the Star of David again, the six-sided hexagonal shaped ring that is associated with 528. Again, some of the mathematical revelations. This is why you, for example, have 5,280 feet in a measured mile. Because today's physical reality and measurement is based on the sacred geometrics of physical manifestation of reality. There's a scaling. You see the entire universe, and this now goes into the work of Hartmut Muller, Russia's top space-time physicist. Muller said there's a scaling of everything in reality. And physical manifestations, if you extrapolate from Dr. Neppi's work with Edward Close, saying that there's 9 dimensions of space, and basically now we're in a subordinate dimension that we're living in. But you see that the frequency vibrations are coming out of the mathematics and manifesting this specific dimension based on, this greater understanding. That was suppressed. So for us to actually evolve as human beings and regain the power of our free wills in order to actually make informed choices and smart, intelligent decisions with ourselves, our families, our communities, our nations, and the world, what we really need to do is awaken to this precise energy, frequency, administered reality dynamic. Now, one more great example of how powerful, transformational, revolutionary, what I'm talking about, what you're asking about is, look at what's happening right now in the field of oncology, cancer therapy. The most advanced, most promising cancer therapy is called photodynamic therapy. It comes out of the understanding that actually your DNA, which we say, oh man, thank our parents for giving us our genes, and now we're here because of our parents. Well, you can actually, according to the science, thank your parents about 4% of your existence. About 4% of the function of DNA is what COVID-19 vaccines are fraudulently engaged with. You see, trying to manipulate chemically or even genetically the DNA, the genes of a human being is stupid because it's really only 4% of the function of DNA. If you really want to do what's most intelligent, why don't you deal with the 96% of the function of DNA? And that is in sound and light signaling. They call it in science phonon emissions. Photons are light packets. Phonons are sound, frequency, vibrations. Phonon emissions for intercellular communications. You're dealing with what's called piezoelectricity, vibrating your DNA as a virtual antenna to the Creator, receiving the Holy Spirit power of vibrating energy, and then sending that out. Cellular upregulation. The scientists in virology and molecular biology and genetics say, okay, we're now witnessing cellular upregulation. What does that mean? Well, Tyler, what it means is that you're literally being re-manifested in this quantum field, in this dimension, every nano instant. You're being recreated by the sound and light frequencies. And I say at the heart of it, the most wonderful is 528 love. Now, look at what's taking place in cancer therapy. The most advanced, potentially beneficial of all cancer therapies, photodynamic therapy. Here's how it works. You take, they call it a chemical. Of course, the drug companies are producing chemicals to paint the cancer. If you really study the chemistry, it's virtually identical to chlorophyll. That's what they're painting. And of course, they're going to charge an arm and a leg. They'll probably charge you $10,000, $15,000 for probably a few cents of chlorophyll drug, right? So you paint the cancer with, let's say, chlorophyll, and then you hit it with a ultraviolet light, or you with a red beam, and that low-level infrared beam then triggers a vibration of the chemistry of virtual chlorophyll that then sends electrons of love, negatively charged electrons, into the tumor cells. And if it's true, what the scientists are saying, that most of these tumors are caused by herpes-type viruses, there's virus infections in there, such as the human papilloma virus, which comes out of the herpes. And of course, you overlook all of the research I did a quarter century ago, which deal with emerging viruses, AIDS and Ebola, and how they took those herpes viruses and now they mutated the rhabdovirus simians to create Ebola, to create the AIDS viruses. Of course, all that work, let's just forget that for a couple minutes. But now, just say, now we're going to vibrate the cancer cells and the tumor with these light and sound signals. And what happens is, miraculously, the viruses die and the tumor starts to disappear with no radiotherapy.
I'm so sorry. I want to interrupt for a second and just clarify. So what you are saying is, instead of getting chemotherapy, which, can you like really dumb down layman terms?
Yeah, poisoning.
Chemotherapy.
You want to poison the tumor, you got to poison the rest of the body. That's what they do. That's why it's so deadly. Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, it's not as precise as what I'm talking about. See, with photodynamic therapy now, you're just painting the tumor itself, and then you're irradiating the tumor with a beam of far infrared light. That's what they're using. I am suggesting that you could also very likely use 528 nanometers of light and probably get even the same results or potentially even better results. And I make that claim knowing the pathochemistry, the biophysics and the biochemistry that's taking place. You know, we had in Iran, University of Iran, researchers who somehow got a word of my work in 528. And they decided to go into a laboratory, a well-financed, double-blind study. And they published that independently from me. I didn't even know about it until a year after it happened. They published that the 528 frequency, just that wave form, increased human beings and cellular antioxidant activity by 100%. Well, gee whiz, if you want to defeat COVID-19 today, what's being suppressed is that it's the antioxidants that are actually the best, most safe, and highly effective things that you can turn to. You're talking about vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc. They're all antioxidants. You're talking about oxysilver with 528, which is what I branded and brought to market after the scientists at NASA developed it initially to keep the astronauts healthy in space. 528 frequency, I added to this silver water double superconductor of sound and light energy so that you could actually have a substitute for vaccinations for so many people that don't want or can't medically tolerate vaccines or antibiotics. You need alternatives. So I developed 528 oxysilver. But look at hydroxychloroquine. How does it work? Antioxidant activity. Look at the brand new drug that the FDA just approved, had been used for other illnesses, diabetic problems. Again, they work as an antioxidant. What does that mean? Here's the most important message. I told you about electrons beaming off sunshine to give us the rainbow. Electrons, you see, that's how it works. If you want to stop COVID-19 today, you don't use mRNA vaccines and a lipid envelope that delivers to your cells, lipid envelope containing nanotechnology, virtually that they could put all sorts of things in, biosensors and all sorts of trackers and communication, radio signaling capability. That's what's actually the technology behind the Moderna and Pfizer mRNA vaccines. You wouldn't do that if you're smart. What you would do is you would use this understanding of how to cause the DNA resonated healthfully and boost immunity optimally through antioxidant activity. Now, again, this relates to how the virus of COVID-19 attaches to the human cell and what their vaccines are supposed to be basically playing off of. You see, the virus itself is an infectious agent. Their vaccines, the mRNA vaccines, are infectious agents. They're using the same technology. You know, when you look at the pictures of the virus that they're showing you in the media, they have the spike proteins, you know, those spikes that stick out from the virus. The fundamental spike itself is negative, is positively charged. It's all plus, 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 plus. It's like the hydrogen of the sun that's lost its electrons. In water chemistry, your body's mostly 80% water. Let's say about 80% water. Water is a liquid crystal superconductor of sound and light. That's how DNA functions by what I've mentioned earlier. Photons, phonons, emissions for cellular upregulation. So basically, you're being remanifested. You can thank God for 96% of the fact that you're sitting there right now in the chair. You can thank 4% of your parents. But what's taking place when the COVID virus attaches to the human cell and then injects the mRNA into the cell to subvert the DNA to cause more production of more viruses. That's the model that Moderna and Pfizer are doing. And if you really were smart, what you would do is simply neutralize the positive charges on the spike protein because they're all positively charged. To neutralize them, you add an electron. That's antioxidant activity. How do you add the electrons? Through the antioxidants. Vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, chlorophyll, oxysilver with 528. Listening to 528 music alone, as you mentioned you do. The new drugs, hydroxychloroquine, all of those are antioxidants. What do? They neutralize the spike protein so that it can no longer easily attach to the cell, no longer infect the cell. So
Really quickly, because I do remember at one point President Donald Trump was like, take this chloroquine, like this is what you need, this is what's going to be helpful, and everyone attacked him and was like, yo, he's crazy,
that's
don't
right.
take it, it's going to kill you, you're going to have adverse effects. So he was essentially correct.
That's right. Absolutely correct. He was advised by experts. He has good people around him and bad people around him. He has mostly bad people around him, as you can tell. But the bottom line is, yes, they did the same thing. Remember when he says that you could basically use ultraviolet light, and they basically disparaged and smeared the hell out of them then? Well, again, what is ultraviolet light? That's what I'm talking about. You know, when I went to Africa, one of my trips to Africa, I went to research Dr. Basil Wainwright and his research. You see, he was in the United States. Basil was an advocate and in the United States treating people with HIV/AIDS using oxygen. Oxygen is an antioxidant. You're delivering more electrons of love. I call them electrons of love. You're delivering more electrons of love to the system when you breathe. Oxygen, exercise therapy, you know, you get the endorphin release. You feel great, you know, after exercising, going for a jog or going for a swim, you know, just showering. Look at what happens when you shower. You know, you're exhausted after a hard day. You take a shower, suddenly you feel refreshed. How did that happen? Antioxidants. The water pumped you full of negatively charged electrons. How about sleep? When you go to sleep feeling exhausted at night, you know, miraculously you wake up, you know, 6 hours, 8 hours later, feeling refreshed. How the hell did that happen? It happened because all night long, the Creator's, by grace, is giving you a Holy Spirit power, spirit, energy, electrons. Electrons are beaming you all night long to restore your energy. Now, disease is a lack of energy. All disease is a lack of energy. All disease is acidification of the body chemistry. Cancers cannot do well in an alkalized environment. That's why, following my work and Jim Carnstan's work about 15 years ago, suddenly there was an explosion in alkalizing water machines and alkalizing water. I'm largely responsible. I basically took Jim Carnstat's preliminary pioneering research in this field, and I basically advertised the heck out of it. Now you've got, it's commonplace. Everybody's alkalizing, you know. So one of the ways, again, many doctors, but
You have
Donald,
alkalizing water right next to you, as a matter of fact.
what's that?
Yeah, alkaline water is right next to you.
Yeah, yes, I have some right here. You know, this is the best on the market.
Why is it important? So you have touched on such a large array of like, I wish I could keep you. I wish we could have 5 hours together. Why is it important for you to drink alkaline water?
Well, okay. First of all, I'm showing this. You know that good-looking quarterback for Kansas City, Mahan? Have you watched him play? You know, he's a genius. He's just brilliant on the football field. I mean, a superstar, good looking too. And so the Essentia people, they actually hired him to do the promotions for Essentia. It's 9.5 pH. 9.5 pH is one of the highest parts hydrogen. That's an indicator of electrons. How much energizing electrons are in the water? That's parts hydrogen, pH. Now, if it drops below 7, now you're losing energy. You're taking energy out of the system, out of the water. And so you're doing that with your body. Why it's so important to basically have, ideally, you should be operating at 7.6 to approximately maybe a little bit 7.9 pH or thereabouts. But you see, tap water is usually set at 7.0. That's neutral because, again, health is being suppressed. The public health officials that have done this to society with COVID-19 are not interested really in your best interest. They're interested in paying their bills, their medical education, their advanced training. I was there. I have a Harvard degree in public health. I was heavily involved in the public health community. I have about 36 scientific peer-reviewed publications to my credit before I woke up and realized, this is all a con job. It's all controlled. For me to have any really major impact, I've got to address the community. I've got to address the grassroots. And that's why I said, okay, after my first book was actually stolen by what ended up being Simon Schuster, and I was ripped off. I said, this is not the way to go. I've got to actually publish myself. And that's where, I became a successful publisher and then basically health educator in the masses. So the fact is that they don't want you to know the simplest, least expensive, most effective, safest of all of the therapies, natural healing products and services. They disparage it like they did with Trump. They said, no, you can't put the Clorox bleach in your system. That was a misrepresentation. It was consumer fraud. He did not advise anybody, to put Clorox bleach in their bodies. There's been a lot of efforts to look at the manner in which that bleach worked is by adding electrons. So again, it acted as an antioxidant. When he said you should use ultraviolet light and they smeared him. Again, this deals with really how it works. So you've got to see that civilization is mind controlled. It comes out of the CIA's MK Ultra mind control program. And all of the media, the mainstream media, including Fox News, which supposedly represents the right wing, they don't tell you all the crap about vaccines because Rupert Murdoch is heavily invested in the Merck Pharmaceutical Company and the sponsors. They're all drug sponsors. You think that they're going to bite the hand that feeds it? No. So that leaves us in the grassroots required to come to each other's aid and help each other awaken to these realities. But essentially, the water revolution is an antioxidant. It's adding electrons to the system, and that alone would be beneficial for neutralizing all viral infections, eliminating cancers. And unfortunately, we don't hear anything other than that this is foolishness. This is, pseudoscience, hocus pocus. We're snake oil salesmen. But yet, you look at Mahan advertising, the chief advertiser for Essentia now, a superstar on the football field. What does he drink? Hello.
So we are coming to the top of the hour. I want to take a moment and say hi, Sherry. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. I really hope that we can work together and get you back on air. But with us coming to the top of the hour, I really want to do like a lightning round of questions. And so you mentioned before that all disease is lack of energy. So when we have elders that are going through like depression, when we have people that have chronic headaches, when we have when we have dis-ease in our body, what is the first step that we need to take for ourselves and for our loved ones in order to heal them without the pharmaceutical company? And you keep saying like light. So how do I, like at home, how do I engage in this thing when, like, for instance, I went and got my chakras aligned with the different colors, all the way down, the reds, the purples, the yellows, the greens. And when I left, I was on a whole nother level. So the CD.
That's what this is. This takes you through the different chakras of the different frequencies and the different colors. That's exactly right. So to answer your question really quick, Tyler, drink water, hydrate, oxygenate. There you go. Because headaches, example you gave, headaches is simply a acidification of the neurology around your brain. Lack of oxygen and acidification go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So when you drink alkalizing water, for example, you're replenishing the electrons and the headache is just going to disappear. Most of the headaches, think about this, most of the headaches in the United States especially are caused by caffeine consumption. Here are the acidifiers, the lifestyle risks associated with all illnesses, all chronic diseases, and headaches. Caffeine, nicotine, sugar, stress, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, and lots of red meat. Hard to digest. You got to produce acid. They're all acidifiers. They're all acidifiers. So now, you have your morning cup of coffee, a few hours later, you feel kind of like depressed. You have what goes up must come down. You're now having to have another one or drink sugar, have sweet, have a 3 o'clock buzz in the afternoon from a chocolate bar. All of those are acidifiers. So the headaches primarily are caused by the acidification, that simply drinking good alkalized water would be tremendous. Look at what happened in Africa. You remember in 2014 when Ebola struck again, when Ebola was released again. And I could tell, I published up on medicalveritas.org. You can go to medicalveritas.org. That's the journal I'm the editor of. It's online. You can go into what happened with the Americans that were brought from Africa, where the African people were dying. The few patients that were brought to America, within 2 weeks, they were all healed. How? Because what was the principal therapy? Good hydration, oxygenation, good nutrition. Bingo. Overcome a terrible infection. And so this is, again, the model. You can get rid of most of your diseases. Now, let me just, because it's in my mind, share with you the travesty, the criminality of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. If you studied the FDA, they reported the other day, they actually showed slides that I took pictures of to show what are the side effects, the quick side reactions to the first and second injections. Mostly, highly different from the placebo, is inflammation of the joints, pain in the muscles. Why? Because you see what happened is that when the injection occurred, the injectable, the active delivery ingredients stuck to the muscle fibers, stuck to the joints, and then caused inflammation of the joints because your white blood cell bodyguards come in and they inflame it. It gets hot, gets red, gets painful. So that's a standard typical reaction of an infection. So that's what they've done by injecting the Pfizer and Moderna mRNA vaccines coated by this lipid nanoparticle envelope that actually allows for the attachment that can deliver all sorts of other things that they're not even telling you about. Huge risk to civilization, frankly. But basically, the joint itself is becoming acidified because of the inflammation. When the white blood cell bodyguards infiltrate and come in and try to clean up the toxins and get rid of them, they only live for, let's say, 48 hours, and then they die and they basically pee out like your muscle cells. When you're working hard, you're actually creating lactic acid. So going back to sports, for example, you're on a football field and you have a Charlie horse, your leg goes into a cramp. You see the sports physiologist goes to the field, massages the muscle. That's all stuck. It's all in spasm. And that gets rid of the lactic acid. What's maintaining the spasm is the acid. It's the lactic acid. So hydration, good hydration, and restoration of a normal flow of alkalinity, negatively charged electrons. That cures the illnesses. Now that goes back the big picture, to spirituality. Again, what is spirit but energy? I said at the beginning, spirit is energy, energy is electrons, all energy. Universally is electron mediated, all energy. Nothing moves in the universe without electrons. And in medicine and biology and in molecular biology and genetics and protein crystallography. That whole field, your whole body is made of crystals. Water is a liquid crystal superconductor. Your proteins are crystals. So liquid crystal. Look at how radio, the first radio, even how computers today work. Silicon crystals, crystal chips, quartz crystal, radio broadcasting, piezoelectricity. It's called piezoelectricity. That's what now is delivered to your brain to get rid of the headaches. The electrons come out of the water, the good hydration, comes out of the oxygen, good oxygenation. Now, elimination of acidity, elimination of pain.
We have come all the way to the top of the hour. I have so many more questions, and so I will definitely be touching base with Sherry to get you back. If you can, in 30 seconds, how do you maintain a diet when you know all we know about Monsanto infiltrating the the FDA? Like, how do you eat to live when everything created is genetically modified?
Well, ideally, you want to be having a greenhouse in your space, even in the wintertime. In Russia, they're a model internationally for growing your own. And about 30% of the families in Russia grow their own vegetables during the summer season. And this is something that we highly encourage people to do. That's where you can get the really fresh enzymes. You know, so much of it is in the enzymes, the vitality and the spirit energy that's in the plants. That's how I would do it. Unfortunately now, you know, it goes to Kissinger. Kissinger had a famous quote. He said, quote, "Control the energy and you control the economy. Control the food and you control the population." End quote, Kissinger. So very important question. Be as natural and living as you possibly can. I mentioned chlorophyll a number of times during this broadcast. Powerful. Study it, consume it. Wheatgrass juice fast for people who've got cancer is very, very beneficial. It's been proven over and over again. The Hippocrates Health Institute I went to in the 1970s in Boston, not far from where you are broadcasting. And that's what they prescribed already back in the 1970s. So you can see my gray hair. I'm pretty old.
I thank you so much. I am virtually hugging you. Thank you for this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. I am Tayla Andre. We just had an amazing interview with Dr. Leonard Horowitz. As the bottom of the screen, for those that are listening, it's Dr. LeonHorowitz.com. Please go to the website. Everything that you can see behind him is on the website as far as the books are concerned, the pills, the silver, get all of it. Do your knowledge, do the research, do your own due diligence. Don't believe anything that came out of my mouth or his mouth, but do your own due diligence and come to your own understanding. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. Waking Up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you so much, Dr. Horowitz. I love you. You are my favorite guest of all time, hands down.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
You as well.